Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's almost 4 o'clock and the start of Memoir Church with Suze Allen. My name's Dewey, and I'm just doing a little bit of housekeeping. If you are listening and you have headphones on, please leave your microphone off so we can hear. I'm sorry, leave your microphone on so we can hear any feedback that you might have. If you do not have headphones, then we would request that you turn your microphone off so that we can hear the memoir that's being read today. I'd like to introduce your host tonight, Suze Allen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dewey. Welcome to Manuscript Mentors Memoir Church, not your grandma's gospel. Lots of fun responses on the Facebook event to the word church. So, yes, this will be people's stories. We're really excited to have you all here. And I just, at Manuscript Mentor, I teach a memoir writing class, The Art of Legacy. I also work with clients on telling their stories. And for those of you who know me, many of you do, who are hopping on the Zoom today, welcome, welcome. It's so exciting. I would just like to say, that I've always been just enthralled with people's stories. They've always been so compelling to me, and that's what perpetuates the human race, right? We tell our stories. We offer them up for learning or for edification or for wonder and inspiration. And today we have with us, she's a very dear friend of mine, Lisa Stathoplos. And I like to say now that she's an author, actor, and activist, not always in that order. Her life is very rich and full. Hey, Lisa has actually written and published one memoir called Make Me. And if you go to your chat, you will find a way to be able to purchase her book if you haven't already. And what you're about to hear today from Lisa are two stories from her upcoming memoir called Chimera, A Shapeshifter's Journey. And I just love, there's a quote by Stephen King in his book on writing. You can, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will. And Lisa was brave enough to start because she could, and she should, and she did. And I, for one, am very proud of her. And what I find really wonderful about Lisa's stories are she doesn't shy away from the truth. At times they're brutally honest. They're full of dialogue, which is such an interesting and wondrous style to write in. And we'll be talking to Lisa a little bit more about why she writes that way. So if you can hang out afterwards, we're going to be doing a Q&A with Lisa. And to start off, I am going to have a little chat with her. So everybody, introducing Lisa Stathoplos.
Yay! Hello, some of you who are friends and sisters and friends.
So Lisa, how did this happen? How did you start writing your first memoir that turned into memoir 2?
Well, we had a pandemic. I think we're still having one, and it's so fun. We just had made a major move, geographical move, to get above Portland a little bit, my theatrical home forever. And I was teaching, and pretty soon went into lockdown. So trying to figure out, I also was in rehearsal in Portland as an actor for a new project, which obviously got shut down. It was kind of a pretty exciting project. And so I don't know. I blame her. Well, I started a writing class, and
Are you pointing at me? Are you
it
talking
happened.
to me? Are you talking to me?
So from a prompt, which was an active voice prompt, um, she asked me to get to a memory of something physical. So I had years and years of physical therapy because I've got a freaky spine, and I just remembered these evil radiologists. They were super mean, just one time, of a bazillion times, this one time. And then after I just kept finding her voice, I talk about her, but it's me. But it started with my 14-year-old self, and it just stayed. So I just kept writing, and my best girlfriend over there with her whole editing thing said that I had a book and I had to keep going. So
It
I
was
did.
very interesting because I kept calling it a book, and Lisa's like, I'm not writing a book, but I have this new story. It's not a chapter, but I have something else. And then I was like, when are you just going to say I have a book? It took her a while, but she had one quite early on. I found your process very interesting for coming to the words that you put on the page. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I kind of think the introduction to Make Me is really kind of cinches it, so I'm gonna sort of say it. I really kind of dreamt it. Um, I woke up at night or I'm not a good sleeper, and I have been, and I would just stories would come. Um, Once I knew that it was only stories that I felt were instrumental in shaping me into who I became into my seventh decade here. um, there are stories that I went, yeah, no, that's a good story, but yeah, no, because it doesn't really further the narrative of how I became me. And I was really trying to puzzle it out for myself, actually. Um, Maybe for my two kids a bit, my adult kids, but it really just started to just evolve. They just came tumbling on top of each other. The things that I know gave me my spine, gave me who I am. A lot of it was dreamt.
Yes. um, I think I really love that idea, and I tend to work that way myself, but that people actually, writers learn so much about themselves in the process of talking about something that already happened, or it might just be the journey of understanding all the things that went into making you. What do you think about that?
Um, I definitely know that poor Michael having to listen to me read every damn thing out loud. It helps me probably because of a lifetime on stage. That the active voice of Make Me was a natural translation or way to put my creative energy at a time when I was like everyone in the world going, what the hell are we doing? And so I feel like um, channeling, I'm going to say it again, her throughout my life just started to come supernaturally in the same way that I would probably study character, just figuring out what made her tick at that point, and then that voice was just in my head, and it still is, because now I'm into the second half of my life, although now I'm older.
So you keep mentioning Make Me, which is your first published memoir. And for those of you who are just joining us, if you check in the chat, Make Me is available at Book Locker and on Amazon, in case you want to see what her has going on in the first part of her life. And also you're talking about Michael, who is her partner, but also Michael was instrumental in the book and is serving to be instrumental in the next book as far as formatting the book and doing all the graphic design and the cover art. So yay for Michael Crockett. Brilliant job. So why the second why the second memoir, Chimera, a shapeshifter's journey?
Well, I mean, I fully stated in the first book I was only going to go up until the birth of my children. I think a lot of us who are a little older know that certainly children change everything. Um, and also that life gets even more complicated sometimes. So there's a lot of things. I also have a full second career as a special ed case manager, special ed teacher for students with emotional behavioral disabilities. And having done that for 20 some years, I and also having a personal reality in terms of things like mental illness, divorce, addiction. These are things that are so um, webbed in our society. They touch everyone, I think, almost in some way. And I guess it became important to me to finish the job thus far and wanting to maybe give a little window in through my perspective, just my life, of things that generally people don't talk about a lot, or even a window into a world in special education that, with behavior people don't know, or they think, oh, that's a bad kid, or that's a bad person. And I personally, through my training and everything else, know that there aren't any bad people, that there's really maladaptive behavior. So um I guess I wanted to illuminate that. It's also tricky because I have to keep some folks safe. So, unlike the first book, where if I used anyone's actual name, I got permission from that person. The second book, I haven't asked for permission, and I'm going to be a little bit more nervous about it if once I put it out there. I've changed everybody's name. Well, not everybody, but many people's.
Mm-hmm. That's one of
Michael is
the,
doing the art for that book. I need to plug him. Lucky
yes,
to, lucky to live with an artist. He's a beautiful print artist, and so he's doing all the graphics, which he did for the first book. But he's doing his paintings and his drawings for the second book.
right. The first book was photographs, and that he put them together in a beautiful way. And I think that's something that anybody that writes memoir or uses their own life story, that people can look at and go, oh, that's them. That's who they are. Oh, I know who that is. It's always difficult to know when you can divulge it. Anne Lamott always says, your story is your story. And if people behaved badly, then that's their problem. But there are legal ramifications of that. So one must be careful, and also careful of the people that we love and have cared about. We don't want to do any harm. So, all right. Well, we're going to talk to Lisa with your questions. Afterwards, she is going to read two stories from the upcoming Chimera. The first one is The Spies Who Loved Me.
Divorce is so much fun. Who can afford private friggin' health insurance? Not actors, not fishermen. Screaming this into the ether doesn't make a comprehensive coverage policy magically manifest. Not for my kids and not for me. But it is momentarily satisfying to screech it out into the wind while standing alone on a sea ice strewn Maine beach in the middle of a frigid February, because what else can I do? Lisa, I moonlight as an ed tech in special ed. The school health insurance is great. You should do it. My good friend and fellow professional actor, Greg, urges me to get a real job. What the hell is an ed tech? I have heard of special ed. I mean, who growing up in the 60s and 70s doesn't remember the disturbingly off limits dungeons certain students were relegated to? Teaching is in my family's blood. My dad, high school chemistry and physics, my aunt, physical education, and cousins who teach young kids or nurse at schools. But I have never yearned for this. Greg, get a grip. When I last set foot in a high school, I was 18, and after chucking that mortarboard as far to kingdom come as I could, I made a firm promise to myself to never, ever enter such a nightmarish institution again. But I'm remembering something funny about my favorite high school teachers. something wildly intriguing. Half of my high school teachers are former CIA. Okay, well, a few at least. I only learned this as an adult when we become good friends, although the silver Celica and groovy bell bottoms ought to have given my psych teacher away. What she and her very ordinary looking husband were doing lurking around Vienna during the Cold War remains locked down in her mental vault. My lifelong friend and former creative writing and drama teacher was in Vietnam, along with her spy husband for the fall of Saigon. They barely made it out. It's cool to think of your high school English teacher smuggling communist propaganda out of French Indochina or hobnobbing incognito in Hanoi while Ho Chi Minh planned the Tet Offensive. I go totally James Bond with this stuff. Psych teach in sleek black ensemble with matching berets, scaling walls, cat-like, while her husband, Tim, whips a cleated line up a cobbled rooftop and neatly launches both of them onto it. Shifty glances, cocktails with military personnel, deftly typed memos slipped to counter agents, deception and dalliances, all in the pursuit of democracy and an end to communist expansionism and for maybe a love of hijinks. With drama teach, it's a bit clearer because I know her the best, and she's dropped enough hints about what happened over there at the end. In my mind's eye, I've created a completely fictional image of her on a blurry rooftop with her valiant husband clinging to the drifting ladder of a hovering chopper while he dangles his free arm down, grasps her, and pulls her to safety. They sway treacherously in the wind, the ongoing firefight below, the North Vietnamese advance imminent. The truth of what happened is likely far more harrowing. It's also inspiring to know that these smart teachers and their spouses had brilliant careers long before ever setting foot in a high school classroom. They probably needed insurance too. So spies, espionage, surveillance, suspicions, special ops. All right, Greg, special ed. We can't put her with Joe. We can't do that to her on her first day. My interview a success, I'm an instant special ed hire. If spies can have a midlife career add-on, I can too. I am being escorted to what I later learn is a makeshift behavior program in a former broom closet. Who's Joe? I wonder to myself, but smiling gamely and completely unaware of what I'm walking into, I agree to try anything they deem me fit for. Caroline briefs me. Joe is fully contained after an incident with Mrs. Galloway that got him suspended for 10 days. Fully contained. Yes, she has no permanent injuries. This is Joe's second big bet. Injuries? Joe, this is Miss Stathoplos. She is going to be your new ed tech. Joe's head is enshrouded in a gray hoodie and lodged firmly on the conference table that is nearly the size of the entire room, if you can call it a room. A stack of 3-ring binders sits untouched in the middle of the table. Hi, Joe. No movement. Well, are you okay with this? Caroline seems busy. This is Joe's English class, and there are the worksheets he's supposed to do. A grunt from Joe. Oh, yeah, sure. Great. Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. What the hell have I gotten myself into? I try again. Hey, Joe. I'm Miss Stathoplos, but wow, my name's a mouthful, so you can call me Ms. S if you like, or you can use my full name if you want. I mean, you don't have to, it's up to you, of course. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm rambling. Abject silence. Okay, clearly need to modify my technique. Maybe he thinks I'm an asshole. I think I'm an asshole. An imposter, at least. Let's take a peek at these worksheets you have here. I grab a loosely shuffled sheaf from the desk. Looks like you've been reading The Great Gatsby. Why am I thinking this might not be at the top of his hit list? Another grunt. This time with a small shift in posture so he can eyeball me. I catch a glimpse of a squinted black pupil and a blue-gray iris that reads sneer with a capital S. So, Gatsby is obsessed with Daisy, right? Old sport. Even though she's married to Tom, who is completely West Egg, right? So really complicated, huh? So what Fitzgerald is getting at, Jesus, what a friggin' geek I am. And then Nick tries to help, right? Wow. I mean, does he? Does Nick really try to help? Isn't he widely criticized as an unreliable narrator? My thoughts are scattered. The pile of binders hits the wall clear across the room with the force of one swift swipe. A framed picture of the class of 1998 clatters to the floor. Yikes. Wrong approach. Maybe we'll just sit and hang out. I say nothing and don't touch the binders. I notice a skateboard behind Joe. You skate? Fuck you! Fist goes into the conference table with such power the table rocks. And I jolt back in my chair. Wasn't Walmart also hiring last I checked? Hit each other out until the block change, all 80 minutes. My heart is pounding at innumerable beats per minute. My stomach is growling, and I'm thinking, I could just hope for a miracle, and neither my children nor I will ever get sick, so who needs health insurance anyway? It's 8:15. The 2:30 bell slumbers in the long distance. I'll just let staff know then that it was all a big mistake and say, I'm very sorry, but I don't think this will work out. The day continued to garner my attention. A small trash can fire set under the conference table in the study hall is handily smothered with an old Jaguars jersey snagged from around Max's neck. Max's knee-jerk punch misses Caleb by a hair. Caleb goes back to playing Sweet Child of Mine endlessly on air guitar. Tanya tells him to shut the fuck up. Fuck you, Tanya. Zach thinks you're a fucking piece of shit and is screwing Allison, you know. Simon sails in and grabs a few pieces of Caleb's chicken nugget lunch while charming Brittany and Heather and skating with him at the park that afternoon. Caleb brandishes his fishing knife at Diamond while hitting the E4 on The knife registers, but I'm the hill I want to die on. After I lean across the table between Ashley and Deanna, their hair-pulling incident ends with minor facial wounds only. And with my quiet insistence, Walter stashes his psychedelic glass water pipe in his grimy North Face backpack, and I pretend I never saw it. He eyes me with a new curiosity. They all eye me with new curiosity. I plop down in my swivel chair and rearrange my Indian-style skirt. Shit, maybe she isn't a narc, Josh mutters with reluctant optimism. She's a friggin' cop, Nate chimes in. When Brianna is heard screaming obscenities at Mr. Vance all the way from the history department, she wins away, yet somehow manages to make it to the broom closet without putting her fist into anything, animate or inanimate, and then slams her tiny self onto a stuffed blue chair while glaring murderously at me, I feel the day is a smashing success. 2:30 p.m. 13 unruly juvie-bound or juvie-returned boys and 2 nearly feral girls later, the decorated sped team that hired me asks how it went, tells me that instead, I can work in the resource room tomorrow if I like. Behavior's really hard. It challenges even the best. Would you like to switch, Lisa? No way. I love this. I love these kids. Bring it on. I can do this. Like a covert mission, I suppose, the draw is the thrill. I cannot wait to get back into the broom closet tomorrow.
Saigon is nothing. Okay, lovely. For Lisa's second story, it is entitled Crazy on You.
Did they really just tell me one of my ed techs is clinically insane? It is day one of my new job, and my morning briefings seem to be going well until now. But you'll find a way. We just know you will. I'm sorry, but what exactly do you mean by insane? She is really not well, almost a borderline personality disorder, but she's been here for ages, has tenure, so and we've just hired Christine, and she's gonna be fabulous. Huh. I'm not a fan of armchair diagnostics, but at least Christine isn't nuts. I was happy to get this job, lead teacher, case manager in a composite behavior program, part day treatment and part fully integrated students in a small city public middle school. In my mind's eye, doomsday scenarios now loom. Janice, the special ed coordinator, and I dodge regular ed kids scooting through the welcome back adorned halls on our way down the tiled corridor to the day treatment setting. Big blocked letters etched in glass above its locked doors proudly announce, Bridges. Wow, someone was up late working that one out. Ensuing weeks keep this case manager and her two aides on their toes. The aides, it turns out, they're both nuts. Let's just say they have issues. Passive aggression, mercurial emotions, which negatively impact kids, to name a couple. But I manage these two. I work well with them. I am a team player, and I'm interested in the greater good because the kids, their issues are biblical. How long has Bobby been screaming? Oh, goody, the lauded school psychologist is here. Years, I've lost track. I swallow my mutter. I have worked with gifted school psychologists. She means well, but she's not in the club. Well, once again, we've clocked him at 2+ hours, and the adjacent gym class has been moved to an upstairs study hall. Apparently, hours of primal screaming impede concentration on calisthenics. Like, Liz, which study hall? Where? This actually matters to her? I don't know. Bobby's screams reach fever pitch. Detroit might work. Sarcasm. I bite a random fingernail and fish it off my bottom lip while I stand with my back against the yellow cement wall, my right leg tucked up under me. I sigh and blow an errant wisp of hair from my left eye. Psych whiz doesn't register my look of disdain. Bobby screams on. Dr. Spock in a frock frowns and clucks her bright white and nimble teeth. Have you tried planned ignoring, proximity, walking, weighted blanket, sensory room? Wow, gee, no. I never did think of every tried and true mitigation I have used a million times before. Plus a number of others that you may never have heard of, but hey, thanks for that withering vote of confidence and complete lack of meaningful assistance. Congratulations on that School Psychologist of the Year award, though. So meaningful, well deserved. I bite my tongue. Bobby's endless screaming is just white noise to me now. If white noise is fingernails scraping a chalkboard for all time, this has been going on for weeks. I've suggested a psych eval or medical intervention of some sort, but my superiors just wring their hands. Oh my God, no. What if he never comes back? We can't possibly ask for outside help. Vomiting in the hallway by a lead staff member might look bad. Maybe I can just ram all their cars when I spin out of the parking lot. I have never not had a kid return to my former high school behavior program. That is the goal of professional interventions, to get them help and get them back. Do you have a plan? Madame Freud asks with infinite insight. Strychnine, maybe just a hose vented to my tailpipe. Oh, you mean a plan for him? We usually try to keep up his on and wait him out. Sometimes a weighted blanket house, but honestly, he seems to crave a very small group setting. Small group setting is not his current placement. I see. Okay. She walks away. She just walks away to confer with another gifted guru with whom she confers often. These clandestine conferences typically end with no consequence other than congratulatory remarks and high fives between gurus. My personal inner sensory room is exploding with nifty thoughts I might hurl back at this occasional colleague who could not recognize a competent staff member if one cured all of society's ills while juggling plates on live TV. The injuries I have incurred in this novel program are instructive, though not a deterrent to my wanting to excel at this job and make it work. I have had my Achilles split, my thigh bone bruised to a horrid purple, blue, and black by an angry 8th grader. He ground me into a door jamb while threatening to kill his most hated classmate. I was overdue for a tetanus shot, so maybe the 3-penny nail jammed into my arm was a good thing. I have clocked endless woodland jaunts through an adjacent forest glen, tracking escapees from our fully contained facility. I've traced smeared feces on bathroom stalls to similarly adorned hallways in my effort to locate the girl I suspect of suffering familial sexual abuse before she deposits more of her steaming trail. I've purchased so much RID for families who suffer chronic head lice that I should hold stock in the company. 3 students' families, to be exact. This may seem altruistic, but it is actually quite selfish. I would rather purchase RID for other people's families than for my own. I have used Scotch tape to capture scurrying bed bugs from students' clothing and escorted said students to the nurse's office, usually at a discreet distance, lest an errant bed bug suddenly evolves, decides to go for it, and jumps. It must be so hard to work with those kids. I don't know how you do it. I hear this often. Oh, the kids are great. The kids just need someone who really wants to understand them, listen to them, and actually hear and not judge. It's the adults who are the problem, especially adults in high places making far-reaching decisions who've never set foot in a special ed classroom. In my late 20s, I started teaching improvisation and theater games to at-risk youth. I worked in a variety of programs and settings: the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, special purpose summer programs, and public school venues. I've long been fascinated by the varied stories and backgrounds of students with behavioral challenges, maybe because I was a bit of a behavioral challenge myself. I've been a professional actor for over 30 years. I never pictured becoming what I am now, a certified special education teacher for students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. The years spent trying to help high school kids and their families navigate school and all the problems in living that affect school performance have been rewarding, challenging, and rife with incident. My work with these students is about improvising, thinking on my feet, figuring out what's needed in the moment. My efforts in this new school district are being thwarted at every turn. It's your program, Lisa. We trust you. Do whatever you think is best. My immediate supervisor utters this refrain often with her big suspect smile, only to walk in midday and walk it back. Why is Freddie sitting on the floor drawing in the hallway? He has to do his work. Or, well, I would never let Tiffany teach Kia how to clean the fish tank. She doesn't deserve to after last week.
Oh my God.
Be sure my internal screams are getting closer to audible. These strategies are actually empowering kids. Kids who had been acting out every day now engage in their own and others' learning, at least some of the time. In my book, that's progress. That's a win. This lack of trust and patience from an immediate supervisor, this doubting as to why I make the decisions I do, is demoralizing. Give me a chance, woman. Behavioral progress doesn't happen overnight. I want to shriek more and more often. Her admonitions are completely disorienting, especially after all the exhortations of her trust, excitement, and encouragement now morphed into micromanagement. At 7 a.m. on a dreary Monday, I stare out my classroom window feeling completely alone and filled with a new and foreign dread. Too many cooks in the kitchen and not enough wait staff. This program is drowning in children's unmet needs. I've never been very good at math, but here are some numbers I can crunch. If given one composite day treatment program with 1 teacher and 2 aides, 15 students with extreme and widely varying needs, What are the chances of the program successfully making it to December? Never mind tomorrow. Well, let's see. I quickly consult my Texas Instruments calculator. Um, One aide is currently retrieving Frank from an upstairs English class where he just squatted to poop on the teacher's desk. He was stopped. The other is somewhere in the woods behind the school, cajoling Thea to come down out of the huge oak tree she is dangling from. And I'm striding to Mr. Thomas's room, where Tommy has an entire classroom terrorized. Quietly and gently, I urge the surly and burly Tommy to just walk with me to get him out of his science class before he is suspended again for hitting a kid, or worse. Our room in the program is currently being covered by the special ed teacher next door. She is literally covering 2 rooms right now. There are 7 kids in mine, each one at a different grade level, working on one of 4 different core curriculums, and each with their own unique and challenging behavior issue. 5 others are thus far able to attend scheduled regular ed classes without classroom teachers kicking them out. Well, at least my walkie-talkie has been inert for all of 10 minutes. Refreshing. So unless my calculations are a bit off, this program in its current iteration is not sustainable. That there is math. That's math even I can do. This program, along with my dad's imminent passing from bone cancer and my son's deepening depression, may just do me in.
Thank you, Lisa.
So good.
Oh,
Awesome.
beautiful, heart-wrenching.
So
Beautiful.
now it's time for the Q&A. And so we would ask that you put your questions in the chat for Suze to bring to Lisa.
Or yes, and some of you could shout them out if you have one now that
Okay.
leaps to mind.
I have one.
We can do both. Yes, go ahead.
Lisa, I love your pacing and I love your transitions. You make such strong transitions from one idea to the next. And I wonder if you could talk about, like, what is your editing process like? Is that just sort of how you write, or do you find your way to those? You know, it's just, I especially love like when like we're in one place and then all of a sudden we get a quote from somebody that takes us to another place. It's like really wonderful. So just
Thank
wondered
you.
about that.
Thank you, Roland, one of my teachers. Rather, well, you are. And I, sometimes there's trickery involved, or there will be, just to help the reader if they need to. Sometimes with a spacing or a, this is real technical term, it goes like this. Time went by. But I have to say, I feel like I just recently wrote the introduction to Chimera, and I deliberately made no apologies for taking you into my dreamscape of memory. So I'm asking the reader to just go with me, that hopefully it will get illuminated. I'm not going to connect every dot of my stories. That's just not the way I wrote Make Me. It's not the way I want to write Chimera, or the way that it's actually been written. So I trust, and then I have my editor, full disclosure, Miss Suze Allen, who, and I also have my first readers who help me know. It's so valuable, trusted first readers who are helping me to know that I got lost there. Because one of my big 4 questions is, what took you out? You know, what didn't you get? What was too big a jump? And I would just recommend, that's a huge thing. And I'm so lucky to have the people who've said yes to that.
My answer to that question would be 0, 0, 0. Nothing took me out, and I just was with you but that's what I so admire about it. It's like, you're just so, like, I just feel so like I'm in like good hands. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's lovely.
And I know from working with Lisa and also other writers, I mean, it is invaluable, that time when you feel, and you can feel it as a writer, when you feel you need a witness. Speaking in the memoir church terms, I need a where you need it to be received, and you ask those questions, not for somebody to rewrite it, but just saying, where did you go? And for instance, the Spies Who Loved Me was read in class, and then there was this wonderful, there was some feedback, and then Lisa and I chewed on it together a little bit, because it was like, how did we go from your teachers in high school to you? It was too big a leap in there, and so Lisa worked that out brilliantly. But I mean, I think that's what I find about your work, Lisa. Maybe you could speak to it. Lisa, you use a lot of dialogue in your work, and it works wonderfully. You also read it wonderfully. So that helps us, it jumps off the page when you read. But having read it in all its iterations also, that's something that I always feel, that the dialogue is crisp and your voice is very strong. You don't make the other people sound like you, which it keeps us in the flow of it. We know it's somebody else is talking, without all the she said, he said, Joey yelled. So can you speak a little to that?
Well, I'm going to sit that one right back at Suze Allen, because originally writing, and I come from a family of writers. There's my brilliant sister who's here, who is 10 times the writer than I am. And my aunt, who wrote for Time Life, and we've been encouraged to write since we were kids. And I've written stories and written a lot of letters to the editor, a real lot of those. But I had no desire to write a book. And so when I started finding these voices, the first thing I said, because punctuation is very important to me, Suze told me I could get rid of the quotation marks. I was like, yes, I hate them so much. They distract me. I drive, I love to read, and good writers use them really well, just not me. So, I feel like that was liberating. I've done a little bit of help for this second book, where I am using them whenever anyone else other than me is speaking. I think Suze told me that you teach your reader how to read your book, and I love that reminder. So I'm asking the reader to sort of get a sense of Miss Sarcastic young Lisa, who's still, I'm sad to say, is quite sarcastic. So I think my voice gets pretty obvious pretty early on, that I'm commenting on action with what's in my head. And so I hope that also helps the reader. And obviously, because it's me, I really know this character.
Yes.
I use another device because it's important to me. It's all through Make Me, which is that I am a rock and roll freak, and I have rock and roll music playing in my head my whole life. It's like my cure for everything. And so music gets threaded all through. And please don't worry when you look at titles, don't be like, what's she stealing? Because everyone's credited. Everyone is credited. But it's such a real thing for me that I play music in my head all the time. I don't sing. My sister is the operatic singer, and she's amazing. I can sing, but I hate singing. And so, but I do play music in my head all the time. So that's another thing that I'm hoping helps drag you kind of with me. I'm not sure if it does or not, or if it just is an augmentation. I think I just went off. Did I just go off? I didn't answer.
It's okay. You can. Other questions for Lisa?
Are you going to make it into an audiobook? Because it would be great. You'd be so good.
It's funny. My beloved director, who I think some of you really know, William Dufresne, BBC, brilliant director from Portland, passed 2 years ago. And I still do audio work. but Audible is, I better be careful what I say. Yes, I do audio work, but I don't quite know how it works with Audible. By the way, they own the world. So yeah, I'd love to. And since I've been I'm a union voice actor and have been for forever. I like to go, hi, I think I'm the one that should read my book.
Yeah.
But I also don't pay a lot of attention to how things work. Just the producer calls me, says, here's a book, Lisa, come do it. And I do it and then make money. So that's a good, nice thing to say, Andrea. And if anybody read it, it should be me.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. You've got the double whammy, the actor and the author
So
together.
great.
So yes, you.
Yeah.
I've heard people read their memoirs before that don't have those skills.
Right.
Or have those annoying voices where you're just like, okay,
Stop.
you know other people in the business, you could hire. But I would also like to say about the format, I love teaching memoir writing because finally it is a literary genre that is recognized and actually applauded. And we can even use the word literary in association with it, because it used to be just like somebody's diaries and poo-pooed as in the literary world. But what's beautiful about it is it just gives you carte blanche for form and format, which is really lovely. And the thing that Lisa does is she takes out a lot of that exposition. It's really through what she's thinking, which is in dialogue, that she'll describe where she is to you through her own thoughts, instead of describing a barn in depth. It's very active. It's very action oriented, and so that's a way to do it. And it works for her because it works. She does it well.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anybody?
I just want to say, Lisa, thank you. I read your first memoir
Oh,
and loved it.
you're the
Loved
person
it.
who did.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Did you hear her? She said, you're the person who did. She's very disparaging.
Well, I'm putting a plug in for that first one, because if you loved what Lisa just read, you're going to love her first one. I honestly, and what's interesting to me is like, you're just the older version of who you were. You're sassy and authentic, and
Oh no.
I just love it. I can't wait to read it.
Yay.
Thank you, Karen.
And for those who tuned in late, in the chat room, there is a link to Lisa's book, Make Me, a memoir that it has been published and is for sale. And what she read today is from her upcoming memoir, Chimera, Shapeshifter's Journey. And so Make Me is the first 32 years of her life. And this one picks up from there. So it's memoir part deux. So.
Can I jump in here for a minute?
Yes. Noel, is that you? Do I recognize that voice? Hello.
Yes, you do. So, Lisa, I see you in the classroom, and one thing or another is passing through your mind, trying to decide what approach you're going to use now. And there are lightning flashes that go through. Yes, no, yes, or maybe whatever. What are they talking about? Is there a place in the book where you try to describe how that works for you?
Hi, Noel.
Hi.
I think I'm going to give a circuitous answer because I'm trying to rattle through. So the book the Chimera is such a weaving of why I fell into special ed, which you just found out because I needed health insurance, and divorce and addiction and mental illness, and then the mental illnesses that I dealt with with my students and,
Sure.
and their families. And I think that through this series of stories that I drag you through, all students' names are changed and there are composites. Anybody who's worried, don't be worried. I'm keeping people safe. Um, uh, I think you get a sense. Obviously, I mentioned things like studying with Dr. Ross Green, who is my guru, which I did repeatedly, brought to our high school for a year-long intensive with staff. And if you don't know Dr. Ross Green and you have any interest in maladaptive behaviors, please look him up. He's an international rock star. So I guess my answer cautiously is I hope so, Null. By watching the dynamic with my students and I, and also by watching dynamics. I mean, that one was pretty extreme in that program that I was only in for a year-ish.
The second story, Crazy on You. Correct.
Story,
yes.
But the stories that come from my really original and beloved career are from one high school that's a very good school, where I think you hear enough to kind of capture what I'm going to call the program Gamma. I had been very careful not to say the real name of it, which is hard.
No.
But not that it would matter with all of you. And not that
you don't know who's here, Missy. You don't know who's here. She thinks she knows all of you.
No, but I mean, not that it could really matter. I could say that. I'm not, I don't badmouth it, you know, but Sue's taught me early on that, you know, these are the ways that you stay safe so that, you know, yeah. Anyways, that's not answering you very well, Noel.
Well, I think it isn't. Go ahead, Noel, but I can.
I didn't expect well, on Thursdays, I try to, you know, whatever. It's so, what I appreciate about what you're saying is your work is intuitive and then seat of the pants, and you're so quickly able to change directions according to what you intuit is the right way to go. And because your experience,
right.
oftentimes, most times, that's right.
Well, you just helped me, Noel, because you just helped me. And I think the answer to your question originally is yes, because this comes up in Chimera. How many times people have looked at me who know my work as an actor and go, special education? Wow, how'd you know? That's weird. Or you work with, you know, those kids, the frequent flyers, or like, it's like and what comes out in the book is the study of acting that I've done since I was 17 and then went and got a degree in and continued to study forever is the study of behavior. That's what it is. And so it's an absolute perfect marriage. And I believe that's a line that's in Chimera, because I think that one of the things that people are most afraid of with those types, I hate saying that, with students who struggle in that manner and are sometimes violent, certainly verbally violent and menacing, they're terrified of them. They're, you know, rightfully so. They're terrified. I'm not. Big emotions don't scare me at all. They don't scare me unless it's my child. That's another story that's also in the book. And this book will not be published without the permission of both my children, who have to read it first.
Well, and I can also answer your question now, because this book is mostly, it's well on its way to being finished, and some of the stories are Lisa dealing directly with students, so you see her in action with the one-on-one, much like you did with Joe in the first story. You see what she uses and how she makes it work. So it's shown in more specific ways also, instead of like with the second story, Crazy on You, is just kind of a wash of like, how can we deal with all of this? But
I think it's wonderful. I mean, and the stories you tell should be inspiring for somebody who's coming along behind you, and the ability to get the book learning and absorb it, and then fly by the seat of your pants according to the the kids who are in front of you, and trusting in yourself that you're going to do that, that you are able to do that, and that somehow the glimmer will get through. It's very exciting. It's wonderful to hear you read it. I'm enthralled, and of course, I love you.
I love you all. And he
Sorry,
knows
Michael. Sorry, Michael.
It's okay. That's okay.
Paul knows of what he speaks because, yes, you are a gifted and renowned blacksmith, but you were a teacher. I know that. I would say that, yeah, sometimes things don't work. Like,
Say not so.
calculus, whether or not my jaw's gonna get it next or the wall, that comes out too. And so it's a gamble. It's a gamble. I did learn that it doesn't really translate. And I've studied restorative justice, and now I'm in grad school again because I just want to be the thing I never wanted to be, as a perennial student. So I'm in a conflict resolution grad program with Colorado State. The skiing is excellent. I'm in Maine. Anyway, so I just think that sometimes that trying to figure out what's going to work in a moment is it is a gamble, but that trust. Oh, I was going to say there was a moment once in a mall in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where, I work with scary kids all the time. 2 gangs are coming at each other in a mall. And, it's escalating. I can hear it. And I'm feeling like, I just need to go in there and just have a chat with them. Fortunately, reason rolled us. They don't even know you. They're going to punch the crap out of you first. So, I do think that I had the luxury of every single kid on my caseload were with me for 4 or 5 years for the super senior program. So I was their case manager for 4 years, which means you really get to know these families and these kids.
Well, I think it's a gift to the world that you're telling these stories, because our world is rife with challenges with mental illness and addiction and not being seen or heard. And I'm very thankful. And that's what writing your stories and telling your stories can do. They can throw out lifelines. They can illuminate things that need to be addressed, and they can be inspiring. And that's what I think Lisa's work is. I thank you all for coming, and I'll just do a thank you to Lisa, and a big applause. Thank you. And thank you. We're live the first Sunday of every month with different people reading from their memoirs. And if you're interested in writing a memoir, we have a class on Thursday, memoir, The Art of Legacy Writing. And I do one-on-one coaching. And so if you want to tell your story, make it happen. It's important. And thanks for tuning in, and thank you to Dewey, my lovely tech guy and everything man, my web guru. And thank you all for coming, and have a beautiful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.